Hey, Adam,
What's up?
do you like hats?
I indeed love hats. Yes.
Do you like news?
I do like news.
And do you like Christian McBride?
These are all things that I love.
Okay, I got some breaking news for you, buddy.
I'm Adam Maness,
And I'm Peter Martin.
and you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Daily jazz advice and weekly, well, maybe bi-weekly jazz news coming at you.
Yeah, it's not weekly at this point, but hopefully it will be. There's just not a lot of jazz news.
No, there's a lot of jazz news, but once you take out jazz hands news and Honda jazz news and Utah jazz news, it gets a little slimmer.
Honestly, I wish our listeners could just like sit in on a typical jam session between about 3 or 4 jazz musicians, because you'd get a lot of firsthand jazz news in a gossipy kind of way. But we're not dealing with that right now.
This is not daily jazz gossip coming at you. This is true news. All right, so what are we starting with in this week of jazz news?
We're starting with an article from Jazz Is magazine. Shout out to Jazz Is.
Yeah.
Great publication. And this is an article called Women in Jazz Exhibition Opens in London. This sounds very, very cool. I wish I was going to be in London this fall and early winter. So this opened on October 16th. It's at the Barbican Library in London.
It's the Barbican.
Barbican. I said Barbican Library.
That was
the Barbican Library in London.
Yeah.
And the exhibition is called Women in Jazz: A Celebration of the Past, Present, and Future. Runs through December 31st. It looks awesome. The exhibition draws on resources from the National Jazz Archive, which is celebrating its 30th anniversary. More needs to be done like this. We always talk about this here on the You'll Hear It podcast, that women are just underrepresented. I mean, ironic coming from a podcast of just two dudes sitting here.
Yeah, but no, I love when things, and I'm sure it's at the Barbican, it's going to be well done and stuff. It's a great cultural institution and landmark in London. And I mean, just think if you were, a young girl, young child, they got a chance to go see this, and how that can inspire you. Because the thing is, we have great, wonderful female jazz musicians. We do not celebrate them enough. And it's not like we have to fabricate their being. I mean, we need more. Yeah. But how do we get more without celebrating the ones that we have, showing the history and the lineage, and building upon that? So it's wonderful to hear. So this is what we call positive news.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, next, this one kind of caught my eye, and it's actually on a site that I'd never seen before called You Discover Music, with the spelling of you as you, of course, the letter U. John Coltrane's 1963 Masters gathered on New Direction set. Now, this is recordings from 1963 in a 3 CD set due for release on November 16th. New Directions on Impulse. And it's stuff from Coltrane's recordings during the year from the albums Both Directions at Once, The Lost Album, John Coltrane and Johnny Hartman. Now, this I'm super interested in to hear if there's tracks that I haven't heard there, because I'd heard that they were sitting on some stuff.
Really?
So I'm wondering if that's what it's going to be, or if it's just rehash stuff.
How timeless is that record?
I know, and there's been some great stuff coming out of Train. And, normally when this much time has gone from an artist sort of, John Coltrane died in 1967, I believe. So, we're talking, going on more than 50 years. And usually all the good stuff, if anything is found, it's kind of like the sound isn't great. Right. But we've having some wonderful stuff that's undiscovered coming out. So I'm super excited about this.
That's great. I'm going to piggyback on this Coltrane story.
Okay.
Another article here in Jazz Is, which is John and Alice Coltrane home named a national treasure by the National Trust in Historic Preservation. That's very, very cool. And any of these greats of the music, any of their life that we can preserve, any of the history that we can preserve, so that we can, pass that on to younger generations. You and I, we were not alive when Coltrane was alive, but we're so close to it and know people, who knew him and played with him and around that era, that we kind of get the benefit of this just, once removed generation.
Yeah.
But our kids, now it's very much removed. So I think things like this are very, very important.
Right. And I don't know about your kids. My kids love learning about jazz and hearing about jazz.
That's all they want to talk about.
Yeah, because they aren't exposed to it enough. So.
They're talking about doing the same thing to Miles Davis's house here in East St. Louis.
Yeah, they've been talking about it for years.
They've been talking about it for years. I think it's been kind of a struggle to get it actually going. But, man, here's to hoping that they do, because that's another another treasure.
Oh, yeah.
We, at least for our local community here in St. Louis, that we need to have
Man, if
preserved.
once they do that, you're going to see people from all around the world coming in. I mean, it would be like a tourist thing. I mean, the awareness and interest in that kind of stuff is amazing.
Totally.
Okay, now I'm going to move to one of our, I think he's one of our favorite subjects. So he's made occasional appearances on the You'll Hear podcast, our friend Robert Glasper.
Oh, yeah.
And this is an article in another publication that I wasn't familiar with called rollingout.com. And the title is, and this is not as much, well, it's news, but it's more of an interview, so I guess that's newsworthy. Robert Glasper on Common, fusing jazz and rap and honoring Miles Davis. So that's why I kind of threw it in there since you mentioned Miles at the end. We're that spontaneous here at the You'll Hear It podcast. But it starts out Robert Glasper as a way of telling engaging stories through music and with punchlines. In fact, if he did not stand as arguably the most accomplished pianist of his generation, it's not overstated, but no, of course, great. Glasper could probably find success as a stand-up comedian. That's true. So this is a good article because, those of you that have ever talked to or seen Robert Glasper at a lot of his gigs, you only get part of it. He's one of the funniest guys, he really could be a comedian. And
I was at the New School at the same time as Glasper.
Oh, right.
I mean, he was almost never there because he was in Betty Carter's band at the time, and the New School at that time was very lax about yeah, sure, just go ahead. But you always knew when he was in the building because you'd just be coming out of your practice room to get a drink of water, and you just hear uproarious laughter from the Commons area. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you just knew Glasper was in the house making everybody lose it. So
yeah.
Sure.
And I guess I don't know if they talk about, I don't think they talk about this. Oh no, they do mention in the article. He's just coming on. Actually, it's still going on. He's doing like a 3-week residency at the Blue Note in New York.
Oh yeah.
And he's got like all different groups every couple of days.
I've heard it's been awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great.
That's very cool.
And I think it's great that he's changing it up a lot because I remember doing a couple times like a 3-week run at that Blue Note in New York with Chris Bodie, and it was cool, and it was like packed every night. It was amazing that you could do a club run like old school that many days. But I mean, it was the same band every night, pretty much the same set, which was cool. But after like day 19, you're like, whoa, But this, Glasper's really changing it up, which is cool. Tired of pointless, generic YouTube instructional videos?
Are you looking to learn jazz from some of today's best players?
I would say yes to both of those.
That's obvious, right?
Yeah. So what does one do?
Well, one could go to Open Studio.
That's right.
Yeah.
Open Studio, where you'll find pros who are great players and teachers ready to guide you along your jazz journey.
That's right. Courses on piano, guitar, drums, bass.
Yep.
And not just anybody. These are like some of the top people in jazz who are teaching us.
Christian McBride,
I
Diane
mean, if he's
Reeves.
good,
We're going to drop a few names here, but
Gregory Hutchinson.
But I think the main thing is, yes, we have the lessons, we have the instruction, but what we want to do is kind of help you to unlock the secrets of jazz, how to get to the vibe. That's what our concept is here, is those things that have been held back for years, and now we're laying it all out there for you.
That's right.
So join us at openstudionetwork.com. Open Studio, jazz lessons from jazz legends.
Anyway, so going from that to another friend of the show, we'll end with this very lighthearted, entertaining story about friend of the show, Christian McBride.
Yeah.
So, we always talk about how Christian McBride really is a tastemaker in this industry, in the jazz genre. And no more is that represented when he has a story about where he gets his hats in the New York Post.
New York Post,
Is this in the gossip column?
Yeah.
No, it's in entertainment. They have a whole story about Christian McBride's hats.
It's like, Rupert Murdoch calls New York office, tells them, find out about hats from Christian McBride right away.
Yeah, so the name of the article is Where Jazz Great Christian McBride Gets His Legendary Hats. I like Christian's hats, but I never considered them legendary until now. But
ooh, darn little shade on that shady hat, huh?
No shade at all. I'm just saying. I mean, he's a legendary bass player for sure.
Right.
The hats are cool.
Right.
So if you're in the know, if you want to know where Christian gets his hats, he goes to a place in Harlem called Flamekeepers Hat Club, and he also goes down to Gurin Brothers on Bleecker Street.
But I can add one little part. I don't mean to one up the legendary New York Post, but I have been with Chris McBride on the road, and he's also been known to pick up hats at random little shops and airports.
That's right. Hey, if a hat speaks to you, you got to.
But I think what people are going to find, a lot of times articles are like this when it's like, you'll see an article, it's like 3 secret things Oprah Winfrey accomplishes before 5 a.m.
Right.
To make you a billionaire. Usually there's a little more to the story than just replicate. Like Christian's really good at spotting hats that look good on him.
Totally.
So like just because you go to these stores, and they're probably great and have a good selection, you still got to figure out, or maybe there's somebody there that can help figure it out. But Christian, I remember in the airport, picked one up. He's like, man, it looks like a good cap, and kind of grabbed it, put it on. Yeah,
By the way, ice baths. That's the answer to Oprah Winfrey's secret that she does.
Before 5 a.m.?
She does
There's 3.
iced milk bath every morning at 5 a.m.
Skimmed cat milk.
Well, until next time.
You'll hear it.